Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am joined today by my friend ASmallDeer, uh,
Hello.
who is a Magic the Gathering debosser slash engraver. Their their definition of things is a little bit different than the standard definition of things, but it's still the same outcome. They make really cool etched cards that look fantastic. They'll show some up on screen, and I will show off mine here in a second.
Yeah, they look amazing in person, but getting them on photo or on camera is always a challenge.
Yeah, let's see if mine works. Take it out of its main sleeve. Let's see if mine works. Look, works a little bit.
Mm. They tend to struggle if they have to go through a sleeve on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one doesn't have one. Um, and like you can see it. This one also has more fine details on it. Um, but if I grab out the squee again here, even through a sleeve, this one pops like crazy.
Oh yeah, that's really
Um,
cool.
yeah.
There's a storm tide I have that's kind of showing up on camera. Let's see if I can fix the focus a little bit. There we go. That's a good view of it. Wait a minute.
There we go. Ooh, I
No,
wonder.
stop. There. That's what it looks like. It's really cool.
I
My
wonder if
camera
mine's
won't
gonna
focus.
want to refocus. Bummer. But yeah, one of the reasons why um, I say debossing instead of engraving. One, Magic already has engraved foils, so like it kind of confused a couple people at first. But as it's gotten more popular, I also was funded by someone on another server, and they said, "Hey, has anyone tried to emboss a card?" I'm like, "Yeah, I wanted to do it. It looks cool." And I actually got to try that out. So embossing and debossing are separate things. So you can see this one's not showing up very well either. The border here, all around like that area and all here, it's actually got a gold coating inside that stands up off the card a little bit.
Huh.
So if you've ever gotten like a holiday card from someone where it's like season's greetings and it's like popped up and it's a shiny like gold material, um, that's embossing where they actually melt a powder onto it.
Neat. And yeah, foils hate focusing on webcam. Mine's
Yeah.
especially bad because, like, whilst I'm working on artwork, my lighting is pretty good. But if I get cards right here, they're in sleeves or they're foil, they look whack as all hell. No, it is not CSGO gambling time. God damn it. Damn it. How do I do the freaking mod view? Shit. Yeah, CSGO gambling is a whole thing.
It's always amazed me that games like that and TF2 can stay so relevant after so many years. I mean, Call of Duty needs to make its refresher game every once in a while just to re-engage people.
Yeah.
But I mean, those have been kind of eternal.
How do I open up mod view on my own stream? That's a good question.
Go.
Clip, stream info, raid channel, manage goals, stream together, follower only chat. How do I fix this? Community, content, not that one. Settings, moderation maybe? No, that's not doing it. Home. Stream manager is probably what it is. Thank you for the follow, by the way, Sir Wombat. Chat highlight settings. No, I'm not
While we're
doing a
going
CS:GO
over,
despite the opening.
while you're figuring stuff out, I can talk about some of the tools and stuff that I use.
Please, actually.
Yeah. So with debossing or engraving, it's something that I've had people like, oh my gosh, it seems like crazy to get into, and I kind of look at it like even easier coloring, because a lot of the tools you need, you don't need to refresh them like crayons. You still use little outlines and things, just like toddlers might for get just the right shape. Um, and all I use are nail dotting tools. So
Huh.
something like this, I just got a pack online, 5 or 6 bucks, and really, that's all you need is a card and these tools here.
Neat.
Anything else that I'm using is, just extra fancy stuff that make it a little quicker.
Yeah, that's really cool. Anyway, so getting into my questions, and you kind of got into this a little bit. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? What are your pronouns? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So I use she or they pronouns, um, and I teach online for a living. So in between that, I also like to do commission for magic cards.
Cool.
Um, yeah, engraving and debossing is majority of what I've been doing lately. But I'll take on a little bit of everything, kind of whatever piques my interest. I went through a year or two where all I did was do foil peels for months. So it's kind of whatever takes my interest.
We have another goddamn CS:GO case opening. Chatter. God damn it.
We need to shift the stream. This is
No,
clearly what's popular.
absolutely not. I've read enough about this.
Yeah, as far as the card games and that kind of stuff, I really enjoy Commander. That's where I've been playing Magic for a long time, um, but I've dabbled in a lot of the other ones. Um, I've been playing since, gosh, original Ravnica. Man, has it really been that long?
Wow, that's longer than I've been playing.
Yeah, I got started by my older brother, who I played a little bit before that, but that's when I got my first deck. So that's when I say I started. So I mean, I was like third grader, fifth grader, something like that. Um, but yeah, it's I make art on all kinds of other things too, but Magic is one of the things that really pushed me to get involved to it and like not just give up on it.
Got it. That's really cool. So hopefully, let's see if we can view on stream on my phone. Because that's on my Twitch, you're blacked out. So let me see if you actually show up.
Ooh,
Okay, yeah, you show up on mine.
okay, good. There we are. Yeah, I tried to pick an art here that'll show up a little bit more. What I've been doing, just as we've been talking here, is getting the border outlines done. Um, and just, again, ruler and having the right sized circles makes that go a lot quicker and cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
But the real bulk of it is you can kind of see I've already outlined Kibo here when I shine the light just right, and his bananas. Um, when it comes to making a really nice deboss, there's just a couple easy tricks. Um, the first is I like to outline whatever your main subject's going to be,
Okay.
because you can always get close to it, but this keeps the edge nice and crisp. Um, and then just knowing what is what's going to be the like deboss filler, because there's either spots that are raised or they're not.
Yeah.
Um, So knowing how much light that's going to catch makes a huge difference on whether it'll look good or not. Um, I keep a little portfolio to show people some of those differences in it. Because if you don't do enough with it, right, it's
Yeah.
just it's fine. It's the green there is textured, but it doesn't really pop. It doesn't really catch the eye. You know.
Hello, chatter. This is an art stream. I'm joined here by my friend ASmallDeer. We are working on artwork together, and I'm asking ASmallDeer about themselves, what artwork they're working on, and what they're doing. And I'm working on my own, which is right here. Uh,
Howdy.
we were streaming Pokemon a few days ago. I stream Pokemon. I'm Pokemon Minecraft every Sunday. So you've mentioned it a little bit, but tell us about your art. What do you do? What do you like about doing it?
Yeah. So I've got ADHD, and probably the more I talk, the more that'll become apparent.
Same,
So
bestie, same.
when it came to art, for me, it was just it can be anything. And I definitely have too many piles of random art types and projects. Um, but this is one that it's just so easy. It's so portable. I can pick it up, set it down. It's kind of like the perfect ADHD craft for me.
Okay.
um, and that's why I've really taken to doing it compared to doing traditional painted altars or foil peels. Those are a little bit more involved. They take more time. But with
Yeah.
this, I just keep it on my desk in a pile, and if I've got 5 minutes between a meeting or when I'm gonna, interact with a student, I can just take this, get a little work done on here, and then just toss it back onto the pile whenever I'm ready.
Cool.
So just that aspect alone is why I enjoy debossing so much. I think it's also just that relaxation aspect of why people like coloring. You're so focused and all in on it, but it doesn't really require much brain power.
I'm coloring.
It's
No,
funny.
we are not doing CS:GO nor Skibbity Toilet. Goodness.
It's funny. I actually kind of despise coloring. I've been doing art for a long time, but I'm primarily a black and white artist, like a lot of work that you do.
Yeah.
Um, but since I started painting magic cards, I've had to learn how colors work, and I despise them. They don't quite make sense to me. Um, you ever heard of something called synesthesia?
Yes.
So I have synesthesia for sound and colors, and I know that one like it's a little bit easier for people to understand. If I hear something, it's kind of like in my head. I'll see the like Windows 98 media player screens they used to have. Um, so that's a pretty easy thing for people to get. Um, but with colors, something odd. I've heard one other artist talk about it. Because people ask, why do your colors like? Why do you have such wild colors in your portraits? He'll start with purple as a base, um, and then he'll immediately jump into green as his next color, and by the end of it, it looks like a person. It's almost styled after um, it's the game that all of the trans men like,
Disco
where you can
Elysium?
be a Yes, Disco Elysium. Yep. Um, I see colors kind of like that, where there's always like multiple shades to a color. Um, for example, the desk here on stream, my desk is white. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
painted chunk of wood.
Yeah.
Um, if I look at it from on the stream, I actually see it as blue as well.
Okay. Yeah, I can see
So
that.
there's always like a background shade of blue. Where the light is stronger, it changes to green. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Um, so I avoided colors for the longest time because I would point at something and people would be like, "No, no, no, that's navy blue," which that's just frustrating in general from what I've heard from other people. But I didn't like being teased about it because I could see those other colors. So it took me a long time to get comfortable working with paint.
I don't do colors because I feel like I'm bad at them. I've done
That's
pieces.
fair.
I've done pieces where the colors are really cool and they've turned out really well, but like the black and white ones I just feel more comfortable with.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm a sucker for texture. Doesn't matter the artwork. Um, it just looks so neat and interesting. Um, and obviously it's probably why I like or debossing magic cards because I'm just adding texture.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, even with black and white drawing, as I was doing more studies on like different types of art, I fell in love with hatching. It just
hmm
looks so cool.
That's kind of what I do with a lot of my stuff. Uh, Not this one necessarily, but I have another one where it's similar. This is a piece I did that I'll show off. That's of an orc army.
See, I love that. It doesn't even need a lot of color to it just to really make it pop.
Yeah.
Ah,
Then
that looks good.
let me see if there's another one in here. Uh, there's a gnome token that I did. That's a better of an example.
That looks incredible. Yeah, the hatching on that's just amazing.
Thank you.
Ah, that's so good.
Thank you. And then the finished versions look like this. Give me a second. I have a pile of tokens near me. So the finished gnome token looks like that.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get some of those from you.
Yep.
Oh, that
I
is
can send them when I
gorgeous.
send your altar.
Yes, please.
And then the orc army looks like this.
Very nice. Where do you get those like printed out?
My tokens, and only my tokens, so stuff I can legally sell, I
Yes.
get printed off from make playing cards.
Gotcha. That's what I thought. They looked familiar. I've used them for some token stuff that I've made before too.
And then the other artwork that I'm really proud of that doesn't look as great on a token, but I'm still super proud of it, is this zombie.
What do you mean? I think that looks fantastic.
It,
Also, I love the font.
it just doesn't pop as much as the other ones do. Now, that being said, the foil version of that pops a lot. Let me see if I can find it. Uh, do I have them? I do.
So, as I'm working on this, I want to explain something too, a little bit more of the process. So, I've got Kibo outlined, some of these bananas, some of these really tiny bananas. You can almost barely see him there with the light next to his tail. Um, Further into it, there's a monkey up here, and this is where the hard choices comes in. Of do you just texture over that monkey and the other bananas? How far do you separate your layers? Um, One of the I'd say mentors that I've had is Cthulhu, and they did a lot of the shadow box altars,
Yes, Keith
which is
is a
really
very
important.
talented person.
Yeah, all of the work they've made is just stunning.
They had a
Um,
pacifism for a while that I was very half tempted to buy, but its price ranges out of my hands.
yeah, I have one textured foil from Cthulhu before they had to stop, um, and I treasure it.
I bet. So the foil zombie looks like that. Let me put it up on the screen.
Ooh, yeah, that really pops there.
Let me.
Right. As far as deciding the layers on here, the more you texture, the more space there is for light to catch, so the more it'll show up at different angles.
Hi, Bones.
Um, So that's a really important aspect of deciding, how much do I do. So like here, there's so much open space that's blue. All of that's going to become textured there. So
Okay.
this card should really, really pop once I get it going. Um, then the next question is, okay, there's a lot of leaf and foliage here. How detailed do you go? Line work doesn't show up at every angle.
Okay.
So these two tend to be my go-to examples. So this squee, I mean, anywhere I shine it in the light,
Yeah.
right? And that's because it's that stained glass. It's just all ridges. The rest is pushed in as texture, so it's going to be able to catch light from really any angle I put it at. Meanwhile, with this, I've got the waves outlined. I've got the drake outlined. I've even got the cog in the background.
Yeah.
But because that's a bit more fragile and not as thick, it doesn't quite catch it as often.
Here is the foil version of the orc token.
I love that. Those are sharp.
Thank you. My viewer Bones says, how much do your embossings go for?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Or
So
debossings and all that.
yeah, I know what you guys mean. Actual embossing when I do that, because of the powder and all of that, that's a far more involved process. So I don't even know what I'd quote, but engravings, debossing, whatever you want to call it. In general, I'd say somewhere between like $40. Most Magic the Gathering cards would be around that range, just because they're a little bit more consistent in their art. So I've got a couple cards here on my to-do list that I can show you how they differ. So like this Queen Alanol, she's got a lot of little pieces here, but I also know exactly everything I need to do. This would go pretty quick once I set my mind to it. So that maybe even only be $30 just because I'd be able to do it so quick. Flame Blitz, a standard card like this, again, 30, 40, something like that. There's lots of open space. It'd go pretty quick. Now, if we do something like a Pokemon card here, this is where the price goes up and it gets to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Um, there's no separation between the text and the rest of the art, so I have to outline all of the text. Same thing with all of these. There's a lot of curves up here, outlining all of that. It gets to be very, very tedious.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
Bones, don't worry about the term exactly because we were like talking about it before you joined. Uh,
yeah,
ASmallDeer uses slightly different terms because the way she does her work and the way she classifies is a little bit different than other artists. And then
yeah,
Bones also says, surprised that the first example is less money with all that detail.
yeah. Let me pull that back up again. Yeah, that and normally I feel like that would make sense intuitively. That should be like, oh, that's kind of weird. So I've got experience with making these. This was I when I first started doing the debossing or etching again. It's all kind of interchangeable. Um, when I first started it, I used one of these as an example. It was actually the squee that I was showing off earlier. Um, so funnily enough, like people are like, oh, it looks so good. I think this is terrible. Um, I used way too much pressure. I, in my mind, I butchered this poor card. Um, you can't see it on stream on the back as much,
I can see it a little bit.
but yeah, they're like all along this back edge, and especially around the text box here. It's a little, yeah, you can see it really clear right there. Way too heavy of a hand. Not that people look at the back, but
Uh,
yeah, it just
while I have it
rough.
like pulled out, this is what your altar looks like.
Oh, I love it.
I
Oh, I'm so excited.
I made this for an art trade with ASmallDeer. So she gave me a foil etched Stormtide Leviathan, and I made this. And you can tell some of that texture is right there that you really like.
Mm-hmm. That looks so good.
I did a special
Um,
trick with it where I used both paint and ink to do the black parts. So it has a certain like weird oil, not oil, but like tar.
yeah.
You see, you kind of see
It,
what I'm talking about. It looks darker than it
right.
is.
Yeah.
It pops out a little bit more.
I'm so excited to add a new mimic to my collection. But the reason why this would be like cheaper is since everything's outlined in black, I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't have to think. I can just go.
Yeah,
It's also all sectioned in very small parts. So while it feels like, oh, that's so much detail, each flower, I just kind of like go through, and with practice, I can do it pretty precise pretty quickly. Meanwhile, with like this flame blitz, technically, I have to do a little thinking here because I don't know how much of the fire I want to do. There's the yellow, which I'll probably fill in everywhere, but I can also add another layer around that orange and then outlining the guy and something like that would still be pretty cheap. Um, but yeah, it's those little things, right? I tend to be a bit price flexible on stuff too, depending um, if it's something I'm motivated to do and I can do quickly. Yeah, it'll probably be a little cheaper. Something like the Slogurk, that is a bit more detail.
oh, that's cool.
Um, yeah, that one I'm going to be doing for myself and just a portfolio builder. I did a stick fingers altar um, that I have on my blue sky, and that one is intense.
I
That
bet.
one took a long time, actually. Speaking of stuff that takes a little bit longer, my pride and joy that I keep just to show people like, okay, what's one of the more top tier like expensive ones that would show up. I've got this Miss Magius, which looks fine until I get it in the light.
Oh wow,
Ev- Everything is textured,
that's super cool.
every little bit. Um, so something like this, I knew where I was going, but there's just so much detail hidden in every little piece. Um, so that one would cost a little bit more, and I'd say maybe like 60 or 80. Um, Again, depending on how much time I think it would take. So, if people are ever curious, it never hurts to send me a message on Blue Sky. Just say, hey, I like this card. How much do you think it would cost? I'm always happy to give you an estimate.
What's your blue sky? I'll have it linked in the YouTube video, but
Oh, yeah, it should just be a small deer, same as the handle that I'm using here.
perfect. On my YouTube videos, I have the person's three. Like I have three links for the person. So I was gonna just put your blue sky and then whatever you have a link tree set to. If you don't have a link tree set to, then I'll just do your blue sky and call it there.
Yeah, probably. Because I teach and since
That's fair.
um, I keep wrapped up in a lot of stuff.
No, it's
I tend to not take a lot of commission. So that's why I don't advertise as much. I've done a decent amount more online in the last couple months with the debossing, but I tend to not keep more than two commissions in my pile at a time. Otherwise, the pressure gets to me.
yeah, I feel that. That's kind of why I've been taking so long working on this project. I just switched to you. I kept putting off this because it was low priority because it's not. I'm not being paid to do this one. I offered to do it for free,
Hmm.
and I just kept putting it off because um, it just wasn't paying and it was low priority. But now the person's like, "Hey, I've really been waiting for this, and whilst I understand you've been busy, I'd like it sooner than later."
Yeah.
Bone says, forever
Yeah.
grateful that all the MTG authors have gone on Blue Sky. Yeah, Blue Sky is pretty cool.
Yeah. There's if you check my Blue Sky again, I actually have a list that's just MTG Ultrists. So anytime I find someone new, I add them to the list, whether I know them or not. Um, the network was pretty big on Twitter. I had something over there too, but not a huge fan of that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's anyone who you ever want added to that list or people you might know, I'm happy to add them.
I'm sure I'll have a few
It,
on here.
oh yeah, I'm sure. I don't know where I was going with that sentence. I guess I'm not sure. Um, but it is really cool just seeing how the community's kind of rebuilt so quickly over there.
Hmm. It's a good fresh start, honestly.
It really is.
It's not perfect by any means. Like, video could be better because some alters look better on video than they do on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, my medium is one that definitely benefited from that.
mm-hmm.
So I missed that.
Looks better on video than it does in picture. That's what I was trying to say.
Right.
I hope more alters get attention in, like, big Magic media, but
Right.
Magic themselves are kind of like, they don't ignore alters per se, but they don't necessarily like them because a lot of them have third-party artwork.
Yeah. So in my mind, like, so if it's something like turning a counter spell into, Batman saying no or something like that, yeah, I get why they can't really share that. But I'll see a lot of things where people conflate proxies and alters as the same thing. And I want to make sure to clarify, I want to give credit to proxy artists because they are artists first, right? They're making their own resets, designs of the cards. It's just like a secret lair that they'll hire actual artists to do and ship out in the secret lair. Proxy artists do very similar things, except they'll play around with the borders and stuff even more. Um, but yeah, I think just slapping on a different art and saying like, "Oh, look, I made an altar," it's not quite the same. Again, if you painted it yourself, though, it's a different story.
Hmm. But, like, in the eyes of WotC, it's one of those things where they don't necessarily like alters. They tolerate them. They don't stop them, but they
Right.
don't like them either.
Yeah, and I understand why too.
I'm
And that's
very.
why I think it's so important we have these networks like Blue Sky and all the different, streaming shows and stuff.
Hmm. I'm very lucky that one of my authors was featured on and heavily warped at Tolarian Community College game a few years back.
Oh, which one?
I did a Howling Mine that was really cool. My friend Empress Quinn was on, and Faye were playing a Howling Mine that I made. Let's see if I can find a
I'm gonna
picture
have
of
to
it.
go back and look at that.
I think Quinn's been on twice, but my Howling
I've
Mine.
definitely watched Quinn on it before.
Where's the Howling Mine? I'm trying to find a picture of it because I know I have it. I'll have to look it up the hard way.
Yeah, I haven't had any of mine featured on anything big that I know of quite yet. Um, but I did do a commission for Sheldon Menery,
Oh, wow.
so that's cool.
That's what the Howling Mine looks like once it shows up.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You should repost that on Blue Sky too, because that's very Aether Drift adjacent right now too.
I might. I might. But I was inspired. I mixed by Twisted Metal, which is an old video game.
Yeah,
And
I
there's
thought
this.
that looked familiar.
Oh, Bones asked, "What card did you do for Sheldon?"
Yeah, so I worked on a strionic resonator. Um, at the time, Sheldon was going to be going to MagicCon Minneapolis, and he had a deck that he's working on where he was trying to get all of the cards altered by
Yes, I remember
different
that.
uh, women in the community. Um, yeah, sadly, he wasn't able to attend, so I never got to meet him in person. It was right before he got pretty sick,
Yeah.
but I still really value the piece. I put a lot of time and thought into it. I, it's funny when I took the commission, I didn't know who he was. I just I had followed this guy on Twitter because he talked about magic, and then I saw in his thing, it's like, oh, he's on the commander board. He's on the committee for that. That's pretty cool. I didn't quite realize how big of a hand he had in that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I just he'd put a post out saying, "Hey, I'd like to do this. I it'd be great if I could meet you here if you're going to MagicCon." It's like, actually, I'm not too far away. I'll be going. How would you feel about going with a local artist? So I ended up making him a piece heavily inspired by Minneapolis as well.
Neat.
Here, I
My
gotta.
my ex helped me with my altars for a while with some of the coloring. So when he sent the message out, I said, "Well, my ex helps my partner at the time, ex now, helped me with some of my altars." He never responded about it, but I do remember that.
There we are. So this is what I ended up making.
Let me switch to use. Neat. That looks really cool.
Mhm. um, yeah, I won't go too far into the history of it. But yeah, it was a really fun piece, and it pushed me into working in a little bit of a different style too, which is always fun.
The colors on it are really good.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, like I said earlier, I don't do as many painted altars these days, just because the debossing is just so easy. I can pluck it right off my desk.
yeah, Bowen says that's sick as hell.
Aw, thank you.
Bones is a great viewer and just great member of the community. Bones named a the middle one between Torterra and Turtwig. I don't remember what Pokemon that is at the moment, but
Grovat? No, not Grovile. I can see it so clearly too.
yeah, like we know what it looks like. I just forget the name. But Bones named it Morton,
That's beautifully fitting.
and then after Morton evolved into Torterra, I named it Mister Morton. Partially because of his large stature, and partially because Mr. Morton is the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says he does, which is an old Schoolhouse Rock song.
I should check in with my students to see if they know about Schoolhouse Rock.
Grottle.
It'd be a shame.
Sorry.
That's what it is. I should check in to see if they know about that. It's really interesting hearing the stuff that's kind of come out of the cultural conscious
Mm-hmm.
as they go through.
Most of Schoolhouse Rock is aged pretty well. There's a few that are like a little outdated or like not revisionist per se, but like outdated by today's standards.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Like I think there's an episode about Columbus.
Ah, yeah. As more information flows more freely, right?
Yeah.
Things change.
But for the most part, Schoolhouse Rock still holds up pretty well. the math and science ones tend to hold up the best. Like
I really like the ones on like English and grammar and stuff.
yes, Morn is the name of Bones, one of Bones' OCs, and Turtwig is Bones' first starter ever. That's amazing.
That's perfect. Speaking of, how much Pokemon have you played?
Me?
Yeah.
I have been playing Pokemon since I was very young. Though I wasn't allowed to play it for a while, and I only was able to play it because I got hand-me-downs of Pokemon Red and Pokemon Silver for a hand-me-down Game Boy
Gotcha.
Color. And those two were the only Pokemon games I played until I got my DS, and then through I got it from a friend who stole it from another friend, and the friend he stole it from didn't find out that it was stolen until later.
Ah.
So I was able to play Soul Silver for the longest time on my DS, and then once the one that I got stolen from went looking for it, I said, well, I got it from this friend, and it was a whole hassle. And then that friend said I got it from a cousin, and it was a mess.
Mm.
And then a year later, I traded Elite Beat Agents on the DS for Pokemon Black.
Mm.
And I loved Pokemon Black. And
I've been
then,
playing Pokemon. Gosh, I knew I played Pokemon before I could read. Because I remember playing on Blue version. Because I would watch over my brother's shoulder, and he'd be like, "Get out of the light." Um, and I still remember the day that I realized, wait, why is my name Ah? Because I just put all A's.
but then I was able to buy a 3DS, like a new 3DS, like years later in high school. And I bought Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and since that point, either through my own methods or through my ex, who's a big Pokemon fan, I've gotten each game as they've come out. So my ex is a Pokemon collector, so they would buy one Pokemon game, then they'd buy the other Pokemon game, give it to me, tell me to beat it or collect certain Pokemon, and then if they felt like filling out the decks, I'd give them the Pokemon they needed. Or if they felt like doing like multiplayer challenges or raids or whatever, I'd do those with them.
Yeah.
I still have those Pokemon
That's
games, and my ex does not.
that's one thing that like I could gripe about what the game Pokemons have become. But I will give it to them. They've made like multiplayer so much better when it comes to Pokemon. Um, like it's just easier to connect, easier to trade. Um, so I actually have caught them all.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I caught them all in the most recent game, and then I caught them all back the last time they had the national dex.
Okay. What
So
was
that
that?
was when it
X and
was,
Y?
yeah. So and when I say I caught them all, there's only one. No, there's only yeah, I think it was only one Pokemon I didn't go and get myself
Uh huh.
because I couldn't find a way to do it. Um, so the only one I had to trade for that I couldn't catch was Arceus.
How did you get that
Because
one?
I didn't. That one I just had to trade with with someone online, which felt a little bad. But every other Pokemon I was able to get through, like the Jirachi disc or another event. I did an event to get a Mew, all that stuff, and I transferred them all the way up through Pokebank.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I said if I was gonna do it, I'm gonna make sure no one can but actually that title away from me.
Hell yeah. The only game I've gotten a full dex on is Soul Silver, which sucks because that was the one that was taken from me.
Oh,
And I was able to transfer some of my Pokemon from my um some point along the line. I think I got a copy of Red. Oh, not Red, of Ruby. Or yeah, I think I got a copy of Ruby somewhere or I stole it or something. I used to be a bit of a kleptomaniac. So when
Mm,
the Pokemon game that was stolen, my friend gave it to me, turned out to be stolen. I got blamed for it.
ah,
But
and like you said, that whole mess.
that whole mess. But I was able to get some of my Pokemon from from Red and Silver to the DS version of Black or of Soul Silver.
My youngest sister also used to be a little bit like that too. Very recently, she introduced me to her friend boy. It's not a boyfriend.
Ah,
They're friends. He's a boy.
okay,
They're definitely they're in like it's just the pedantics around labeling, but
yeah,
that's what they're comfortable with, so it's
that
fine.
works. Whatever.
Um, but he's really into Pokemon TCG.
Okay,
Um, and since I do the etchings and that kind of stuff, my sister had me make him a Charizard, and that was his gift. And I finally got to meet him. We were reminiscing how back when I used to occasionally get Pokemon cards as a kid, a lot of the time they'd go missing like 2 or 3 days later.
uh huh.
But I'd get them back because I always know where they went. They were underneath her pillow because she would steal them. Because older siblings into it, she's got to be into it and wants to participate, but she didn't have her own cards, so she'd just take mine.
Mhm. Uh, I had Pokemon cards for a little bit, and then my mom flushed them down the toilet
Oh,
along with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards because she thought that they were demonic.
ah, yeah, heard that situation a couple times. I never got to read the Harry Potter books because of that.
I was allowed. Books were not off limit. I was allowed to read books.
It's weird. Like my mom was never super, you know, religious or restrictive on any of that stuff. It was just Harry Potter. And then for my older brother, he wasn't allowed to watch Power Rangers, but he and I both agree with how hyperactive he was at that age. That was probably a good decision.
My mom thought SpongeBob would make me. I'm not going to use the. I'm not going to use the word she used. She
Yeah.
thought it would make me mentally handicapped.
Oof.
So much so that she was abused. Like it's abusive to tell a kid that like don't watch this; it'll make you mentally handicapped. It gives them a bad view of the mentally handicapped.
Right.
But along with that, she was um like every time like it would be on, just like happen to be on, she
Mm-hmm.
like throw the remote and shit like that.
Yeah.
It was rough. And of course, now I wasn't allowed to watch Power Rangers. I wasn't allowed to watch anything on Cartoon Network other than Transformers. Uh, I found ways to watch them anyway, but it was frustrating.
Right. As a teacher, and like as a young person who been through it, the harder and harder you try and push someone away from stuff, the more they're just gonna honestly learn how to be sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've learned that like if they're willing to share their interest with you as a young person, obviously there's exceptions again, right? Use your best judgment. But trying to engage in it with them, even if you're a little bit worried, tends to be the best bet.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just learn to hide better.
Yep. That was me. I got into hacking and piracy and various computer repairs. So in middle school and high school, I'd repair the one house computer, and watch South Park on the computer late at night.
Hmm.
Which is like that's such a middle schooler thing to do is like watch South Park.
Oh, absolutely. I'd stay up extra late and watch Family Guy. So,
My dad had the first 2 or 3 seasons of Family Guy on DVD, and I had a DVD player and TV in my room, so I'd like sneak out. I'd I'd stay up and then sneak out and like borrow the DVDs and watch them in my room on like the volume at like borderline unlistenable.
Right. One thing that I find interesting is like that to me, I feel like is kind of the quintessential like, you know, kid hides the stuff, whatever experience. Like a lot of people our age and younger and a little bit older, they did stuff like that. But I wonder what that's like now for students when everything's on streaming and pretty much everyone's got you know a device that they can use.
I don't know.
Um, I my wife and I have talked a little bit about that. Like, hey, if we have a kid, what's those rules look like? And um, it's interesting on the different perspectives we have already as adults.
Yeah. My Bones says I they didn't know that it was a feature, but Blue Sky lets them pin the card alters to their home, which is sweet.
Ooh, I didn't know that's a thing either. Thank you for sharing. Check that out. That's actually really useful.
But I don't know how my sisters do stuff. My parents, specifically my mom, has gotten far less abusive as more kids have come and gone. And my younger sisters can practically get away with murder.
Yeah, definitely. Restrictions have gone down considerably with my younger brother, but to his credit, my younger brother, he was telling me all about that, and he was like, "You guys had like a bedtime," and he admitted, "It's like, oh no, I am absolutely spoiled compared to what you guys had." So he's cool about it.
Yeah, my sisters. The only thing that my mom's still kind of like abusive and rough about is their phones, but like that's fair.
Yeah, I I don't
Abuse is
know. I
abuse is not okay, but
no.
if you're parenting and like your big thing is like you should be on your phone less or like you're on your phone too much, then like I can understand where like a parent could go too far in trying to
Mhm.
do the right thing.
The one thing that frustrates me, because like I've got like a half kind of boomer opinion on phones. Um, I remember a time when the world was slower and I could know peace. Granted, I was bored at times, but boredom's good for you, believe it or not. Like there's a certain amount of time where your brain needs rest from stimulus, and that's a lot harder these days. So it's one of the most powerful tools ever created by people. And we just have it in our pockets all the time. So to resist that takes a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say to kids like, "Oh, get off your phones, this and that." I'm like, I'm sorry if you told someone from like years ago that that could be a possibility, they would be glued to that thing. It would be it's revolutionary. So
Yeah.
yeah, no wonder they want to be on it all the time. So if you're going to tell them to stay off, what are you helping them do to fill that time,
Mm-hmm.
right? How is that time being replaced? That's something that's always bugged me, and a lot of the time when I'll ask people that, they can't really give me a great answer.
Yeah. I'll make all the frogs' eyes white on this. Originally, I was going to make the frogs' eyes their correct color, but making them all white makes them pop a little bit more.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's a little easier to distinguish them all from each other too.
Yeah. Not only if I could find all the frickin' frogs. I think that's an eye. That's an eye. That one's eyes are supposed to be red. Erg
Yeah,
spawn
that's
of Turg's eyes are supposed to be red too.
another reason why I like doing alters so much is it's actually my way of getting off that dang phone. A lot of my hobbies involve screens and that kind of stuff. I work with a screen all day, so I think it's important that I do something that's not plugged in.
Yeah.
Um, and Magic it's great because it's got the community aspect. It you know makes your brain think a little bit. Um, it just kind of perfectly fit all of those little parts I have. Like even if I'm not motivated to draw like I used to be, it can be hard finding inspiration and pushing yourself right. Um, with Magic, it's pretty easy for me to figure out. It's like, oh, I could make a token, or I can do a an etching like this and debossing.
That looks really cool how I outlined the frog with white. Like right there.
Yeah, that looks really good. All right, so let's see if this pops up on camera a little bit more. There we go. Now it's
Let's
starting
swap
to
the
get
camera view to you. That looks
that
really
edge
cool.
is starting to pop out a little bit more.
So I mentioned it a little bit, but like, what got you into starting to do this?
So that was Cthulhu. I had interest in shadow boxes. And after I made that first shadow box, I was like, wow, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
It was really hard. I think it turned out or I think the first one turned out great until I filled it with resin and absolutely ruined it.
Hmm.
Um, which that's okay. I laugh about it now. Um, but at the same time, just as I'd finished that, Cthulhu on their Discord posted uh, one of their first debossings or etchings on there, and I thought like, oh my gosh, that combines my love of shiny foil cardboard and altering in the most beautiful way. And then I asked a couple of questions, and I saw that the only tools you really need is these nail dotting pens, um, and that was it. I mean, I jumped on that so quick.
Cool.
Um, but I should say though, I don't want to I mean, it's like, oh, it's just so easy. I'm so good at this. Um, I do have the nail dotters, but I've got one other extra tool here, and this is a custom tool that someone made me. It's from JWiki art,
Neat.
and this is what I use for one side's slightly chunkier on the end, and this side's extra sharp. And they're what is it? It's like a micro sand polish finish.
Hmm.
So that way it doesn't actually like pierce and wreck the card.
Okay.
Um, this white tool here, there's one end that works, and there's one end that I tried to sand down to make it more fine,
Okay.
and it got rid of the like whatever stainless steel coating that might have been on there, and it's actually too rough. So if I use that on the card, it scrapes part of the card off.
Ah.
So lettering can be very difficult if you don't have something finer than this. But I haven't been able to find a more accessible tool than this one that was made for me.
Okay. That's really neat. So, what are some tips you have for like getting into it? You've gotten into some of that already, but I have a
Yeah,
little sticker here that has all my questions.
yeah. As far as getting into it, first is be kind to your eyes. Um, this will be a little rough on them, especially if you're not used to working in extremely tiny dimensions. Um, I tend to do most of my work very small, just in general, no matter what the medium is. But even still, I actually suffered my first eye migraine
Mm-hmm.
um, from too much strain, and I was useless for a full day. I'm
Wow.
not exaggerating. Like I just hid under a blanket in the dark. Um, there's a general rule of 20 or 20 something like that. But you look out a window, look like 20 to 200 feet away, and do that for 20 seconds. So the idea is basically like if you're so zoomed in, you need to zoom extra far out to kind of balance it out every once in a while.
Yeah. I do that in
Also,
I
go
do
ahead.
that in the car to alleviate migraines.
Hmm. Another thing is be kind to your hands. So one thing that's a little bit of a danger is if you're always using a pen, that kind of thing. This is just a general rule for artists. Do hand stretches, that kind of stuff. Prevent carpal tunnel. I'm young, but I won't be young forever. And this kind of work is really tough if you have carpal tunnel.
Rip in peace,
So
Keith.
yeah, the best of us. Um, so that's something that I am a big advocate for now, even if I'm not the best about practicing it, to be honest. Um, let's see other good tips. Just like with regular altering, um, I highly recommend practicing on a land first. You're not going to feel bad if you butcher it. Um, you can really use just anything, any foil that you have, or even non foils. Um, but find something that just has a lot of like extra space in it. Um, whatever you do, you want to have like a main figure or like a main area, and then the spot that you'll fill in. Just like with the Kibo I was working on, there's the jungles, and then Kibo jumping out, and all of that blue sky is going to be filled in here in just a second. Um, and then let's see. Oh, having tracing tools is really nice. Um, the big thing is for the borders, using a ruler to get the text boxes around them, and then using some sort of circle tool on the edge, so that way you can get it the perfect like not ratio, the perfect circumference curve. That really helps. And then not to apply too much pressure.
Hell yeah.
I showed it earlier, but as long as I'm talking about it again, just for the stream's sake, um, we can see. There we go. There's the old outline of the power toughness box, as well as the like creature typing box right here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this was one of the first ones I did, and I was way too rough on it. So it actually like warps the card a little bit. So if I was to like obviously ignore all the altering I did on it, it did put some wear and tear on it. So I don't think I could even say it's like it'd be heavily played based on how much warping happened to it.
It's damaged.
Yeah. Um, and then don't be afraid to play around with texture. There's all sorts of different things that you can do. So on this sea drake, this wave pattern that I have on here for the sea drake, I've actually taken that same wave pattern and just put that in the bottom of a text box area before.
Hmm.
Um, since that tends to be open space on certain cards or like islands, there's not really text there. You can put in different designs. You can do just lines across to make it look sharp. You can do diamond patterns on open spaces. I've got a flubs here that I can show off for that. Um, so yeah, really, I think the next big step that I'd like to see in doing these kinds of works is people playing around more with not just texture but actual like designs.
Okay.
So let me get the light here. Um, okay, so you can kind of see there's some diamond shapes all along the yellow background on flubs.
Cool.
There we go.
That's really neat.
Yeah, I took that diamond shape, um, or the inspiration from it, from playing cards.
Yeah.
If you are going to do those, make a jig for it. And if you don't know what a jig is it's basically just like a quick handmade tool. I just chopped up a piece of cardboard to make it the right dimensions. So that way you can make the pattern like easily repeatable. Part of that flubs. No one's, as artists, we're always extra critical ourselves, but one of them's just slightly off because I couldn't quite get it exact, and it drives me nuts.
Uh, I used to do shadow boxes. I didn't do a whole lot of them, and they weren't great. But I made a jig for the legendary frame.
Yes, I've actually, I've got one right here. that I use. I've got multiple depending on the new legendaries. Um, because if it's a full art legendary, it looks different than a non full art legendary.
Yep.
Great times.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And actually, as long as I've got it out, I might as well put in the border box here.
Cool.
Let's see. I've gotten pretty good at getting the curvature by hand for most of the top parts. But it's actually this really long bottom section here that tends to be what gives me the most trouble.
Hmm.
Um, just because I can't find a circle tool that's wide or that wide enough.
Okay.
Um, and it's not quite a straight line either. So if you're off by just a little bit, you everyone knows.
Yeah.
It's not a subtle goof. So I guess that'd be another tip: is do not start on legendaries.
Or like maybe do common legendaries.
Right, exactly. Um,
Something low
yeah, you
stakes.
can. Right,
Do a
you can
Yargle.
work on. We love Yargle.
Yargle, I've come to Bargle.
Um, there we go. Yeah, that didn't turn out too bad. Yeah, I can live with that.
So in making my quiver, I have done these little white spots to make it look like water coming out from this little guy's staff.
Yeah,
And like that's good. It makes it pop more. But this is a gay frog quiver.
the water's turning the frickin' frogs gay.
The water looks like cum. And I can't turn that back to blue because then it just won't it'll get lost. So let's just hope he doesn't notice.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. I did an old art or an old digital altar that was meant to be like a storybook kind of image, and I didn't realize it until I'd showed it off to someone that I had like a background with a cliffside, a waterfall, a little lake, and then a stream coming down from it, and there were two rocks that the stream came between.
Uh
Two rocks that were, a little bit more round in shape,
huh.
and then the stream comes between them, and I made it a golden stream. So he's like, that's a penis full of piss.
It's penis full of piss.
I was like, no, it's oh god, you're right. Oh
The
no.
first ever token I made was a storm count token. Let me see if I can find the picture of it quickly. And it looks bad. And it looks like it just says cunt. Uh, work. Tokens. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I can't share it on stream just because, like, I don't know how to quite do that in OBS, but I can send it to you.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Open up you.
Yeah, if if anyone who's watching is interested in getting into engraving, definitely send me some questions on Blue Sky. Tag me in a post or something. I'm always happy to talk about it. It's fun, and for the most part, it's pretty easy to get into. And I think that's one of the honestly the biggest draws for me is just you can get into it, you can drop it, pick it up in 5 seconds, and you're right back into it.
So there's the print file for it that I sent you.
Let me take a peek. It does look like that.
My older tokens were kind of rough. But I've been doing this since 2019, 2018.
Yeah, I the first altar I ever did was a digital altar where I expanded the border of a Colony Gardens.
Okay.
Only Gardens is a card that I saw the art of and fell in love with it. Um, Years later, actually at MagicCon Minneapolis, I was able to go and give a copy of it to Ryan Pancoast.
Nice.
He's like, "Hey, I got into Ultring because of you, and this card specifically, you should have one." He's like, "Oh, thank you."
Hell yeah! I made a proxy that I gave to. Uh, damn it! He did a lot of black and white artwork for Baldur's Gate. I saw him at Pittsburgh. Oh well, I forgot his name right at the moment. Steve something or Jeff something. Maybe Mike something.
Those are all pretty different names.
They're all pretty different names, but like there's a lot of Steve, Jeffs, and Mikes in the Magic artist sphere.
That's true. Um, Another good tip, as long as I'm doing it right now, as far as debossing goes, is just little tiny circles is really all you need. You don't want them too close. You don't want them too far. Um, just every once in a while, stop, take a look, and see like, okay, is that the type of texturing I want? Um, you don't want to press it all in where it's like flat. That was the mistake that I made with that first squee card I had. You want like bubbles kind of in between it because that actually makes it catch more light.
Neat. Let me see. I tagged the guy in an artist. Phil Stone. I gave a proxy of mine to Phil Stone years ago that he really liked.
It's always fun getting to meet the different artists. That is honestly, the art is one of my favorite aspects of Magic, along with just I do actually enjoy the story and um, the character and world building of it too. Um, I think it's maybe lost a little bit more of that uniqueness, but I think in a couple of years I'll get accustomed to it and I'll look back fondly at it as like, oh, I remember that phase of Magic. Um, just as I, look very fondly back at like Lorwyn, Worldwake, when everything was 2000s and edgy and spiky. Good times.
When Jace was a villain. Oh, wait.
Yeah. My wife can never remember Jace's name, so she just says Magic Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I mean, he's on everything. He's kind of like, that's the Magic Boy. So,
He's the
yeah.
magic man. Bum bump. Bada
Mm-hmm.
bum bump.
Magic Man. Great song.
Yep. My ex hated it because he was used. I think it was either used or referenced in an episode of Legion, and then like another episode of show they liked. And
Mm,
every time, like, I like Heart to a decent degree. I haven't listened to a whole lot of their back catalog, but when they're on, they're on.
right.
And my ex hated Magic Man.
I don't know how you could hate it. It's fantastic. And again, just like heart, right? You really can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, Barracuda.
Though the scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 where it does crazy on you and it's Adam Warlock like blasting through space is freaking sick.
Yes.
I understand they're flawed. I understand that they are a product, but like I'm a sucker for the Marvel movies.
Everyone's got their guilty pleasures. I don't shame anyone for liking them. I think it's also a little bit better too now that people understand like, yeah, these aren't meant to be, the comics and that kind of stuff. So we can stop actuallying people's enjoyment into nothingness on them. Um but like, you're right. They're a product. But you can still like a product. I like Magic.
Yeah. I saw the Fantastic Four trailer earlier and it's really good.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably gonna wait to watch it with my wife because the Fantastic Four is one of her favorite properties. Besides X-Men.
Yeah. But the hard part is Superman is coming out July 11th, and Fantastic Four is coming out July 25th.
Mm, it's a close window.
And like, I like the Fantastic Four. I like them a lot. But they're competing with a reboot of Superman.
So, uh, you can judge me if you'd like. I struggled to get into Superman.
I get it. I get it. I was the same way with Superman for a while.
I've seen more, a little bit more. That makes me like him. Also, like, I really enjoy the fact that like one of his biggest weaknesses, sure, whatever, kryptonite, nah, magic.
Yeah,
I love that that's one of the key weaknesses. All the stuff with the great Magoo just cracks me up.
yeah. And like, Superman's a character that's easy to hate on because like he's
Hmm.
practically a god. But when you think about it from like the historical standpoint of like, yes, he's practically a god, but he's also like the antithesis to all bullying and all hatred.
Right.
And he is a god learning to be human, but not realizing what human is.
Exactly. He's one of those heroes that has gotten better and better with age as we've learned more about how to write compelling stories. Um, so I watch a lot of anime, and if people like are being a little too rough on Superman, a little too critical of him without really knowing it, I just make the comparisons like, okay, cool, but you like One Punch Man, right?
Yeah,
There's you need to think of the story like that. Yes, he's OP, he is strong. So it's not the strength and like the abilities and stuff that we're really focusing on. It's the narrative behind that of like, okay, he can melt your brain with his laser beam eyes, but he doesn't, right?
yeah,
He's not just this horrible monster killing machine. What's all behind that?
yeah, exactly. And then, but like, these days, we need a Superman.
We really do.
So, I'm not one to say that like a single movie will change the tide of like the world and make people like truly believe and understand the power of cinema. But every now and then there comes a film where enough people see it, enough people like, oh, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
And if
I was actually oh, go ahead.
I said if any film has the potential to do it with both a pointed message, a pointed message of like being kind and being a person, like how terrible society is,
Mhm.
it's Superman. And James Gunn's behind it, and he's like, listen, I'm putting all my eggs into Superman. So I have hope for Superman. But
Well, you
Fantastic Four
convinced
looks really
me.
good.
I think I'll have to give it another shot. I don't know if I would have gone to see it otherwise, honestly.
Yeah. The trailer's really good. But it's also a trailer, so it's like meant to look good.
Right. Okay. I am all finished. So for the folks who've been watching and checking in, um, I can show you what that final texturing looks like now that I filled in all the blue. So let me turn it this way. So before we had like the little jungle areas, and now all of the rest of that is gonna be able to catch the light. So like Kibo really pops out. There we go. So, and of course, once I finish the text box and all that stuff, my normal pictures will be on Blue Sky too. So,
Hell yeah.
but yeah, Kibo eventually will be for sale too if anyone's interested.
I highly recommend
Pretty
you buy.
popular commander.
I highly recommend you buy it because us artists are struggling these days,
Yeah,
for the most part.
yeah. I'll actually probably be reposting another one of mine too, because I still have um, the flub and the Saruman. That's what his name was. I still have that Saruman available.
I'm actually nearly done with this quiver. I just need to keep coloring it a little bit.
There we go. Let me take this off.
Let me switch to my perspective so people can see the quiver. Oh, that looks neat.
Yeah, this one's a little bit more fine grain detail, so it's not going to quite pop as much on camera here. But yeah, let's swap over to yours. Let's see the quiver.
There's the quiver so far.
Rogues. Yeah. Yeah, you'll be done in no time. It's looking so good, too.
Thank you. So, what are some of your favorite cards, and what are some of your favorite Pokemon? Since we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah. So my favorite card in Magic, it's incredibly Timmy. I absolutely adore Platinum Angel. It's as simple as you can't lose, they can't win.
I played in my Braids deck. I love it.
It's it to me is just like, yeah, you can do that in Magic. Magic's just like that.
Could you send me that on
Um,
Discord? Because like every guest I have, I try to draw their favorite creature on this huge canvas
yes,
project I've been working on.
I'll absolutely send that to you. Um, but yeah, Platinum Angel's been my favorite card for ever. Since I've been playing Magic, and my favorite Pokemon's Delibird.
All right, interesting.
Um, yeah, it's not one you hear very often. I just I like penguins, and I had I was one of those like contrarian type people. It's like, oh, too many people like it, I can't like it. Um, and I was obnoxious. So eventually, I had to pick something that was unique enough, and I was like, well, I like the way the colors are. It's cute. Um, I like penguins, and I just stuck with it. I had a really hard time deciding anything as a favorite, like favorite food or whatever. So I just picked something, and it stuck.
So, what do you think of Iron Package or Iron Bundle, whatever it's called?
Iron Bundle is awesome.
Okay.
Um, it's really funny. So my brother, just like he got me into Magic, he also got me into Pokemon,
Okay.
and I have terrible taste when it comes to Pokemon and Magic cards. Platinum Angel is kind of an odd one out because it's actually good. Um, but otherwise, I love me some jank. I like bad Pokemon. Almost all of my favorites over the years have gotten like some change or development or a new form or whatever it is that have made them incredibly good back when they used to be just garbage.
Yeah.
And I told my brother like, "Oh, I love this thing. One day it's going to be good. I'll show you." And the first perfect example I had was Kangaskhan
Yes.
cuz MegaCon is banned in tournaments for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah. And after that, it just got funnier and funnier. Now resulting in Iron Bundle, also banned, and the Dunsparce, which I just find funny.
Is Iron Bundle
They,
banned?
last time I checked, it was. That might not be the case anymore, as the new DLCs came out.
Okay.
But yeah, back when I was making teams, I saw it was banned, and I was like, you know what? I'm okay not using it because I can still rub it in my brother's face.
My favorite Pokemon is Dino or Dino.
Oh yeah. Aw, that's a cute one.
I like
Solid pick.
I like the whole line. The whole line's really good. But like in the Pokedex for Dino slash Dino, it more or less is described as how people describe pit bulls,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like aggressive or like it's misunderstood or it is sometimes is a victim of its own strength.
Okay, but but I also love pit bulls. You know why they have such big heads?
Why?
To hold all that love.
Yes. But I have a Dino plushie on my desk that I use.
Cute. Aw.
There's an
I
unofficial Pokemon store near me in a mall
Nice.
that sells these. And they didn't have
The
They didn't have Gen 5 for the longest time because Gen 5 doesn't get a whole lot of love.
Yeah, that
And
is a bit of a crime.
I was tipped off about the day that the Gen 5 stuff was added to the store because I have a friend that used to work there.
Mm.
Maybe he still does. I don't know. It's been a while since I've talked to him. But it's like Gen 5's at the
Has that
store.
being said,
Dino is in the store. Same with the rest of the line. So my ex and I went and we got Dino.
I'm going to speak to my privilege here for a moment. I am blessed to live in a town that has not one but two card shops.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I spent a majority of my life in the middle of nowhere, having no shops, and then I went to college, and there were three shops at one point, which was wild. Um, and now I moved. I moved somewhere else, and the next like two shops were each 45 minutes away, which wasn't terrible. I liked them a lot. Um, but yeah, I moved to my current place, and there's just two, and one's primarily Magic, the other's primarily Pokemon.
So
Um,
if we want to be technical, in my town there's only one card store. It is Pokemon and Magic.
mhm,
There used to be more card games with a new owner who I'm not a huge fan of, and a new way of running the business, which I'm also not a huge fan of. They've changed some things around.
yeah,
If we want to be more broad, there are at least 6 game stores in my town
Plaza.
because I live in a suburb of Dayton, Ohio.
Mm,
So like it's Dayton, Ohio, which is like a small city, and then surrounding it, there's a bunch of like suburb towns where like some are nicer than others, some are different,
yeah,
but everywhere is still within like a 30-minute drive. So
right.
within a 30-minute drive, give or take, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, um, there's like 6 or 7 game stores.
God dang, that's that's baffling to me. I've always lived in smaller towns. So like where my mom lived, the gas station went out of business before both the bars, which says all you need to know about that small of a town. Um, but like where I went to school is it's still pretty small. It was nice enough. But if I needed to work somewhere, I'd have to go to the bigger town 15 minutes away. Um, or the other like smaller, road stop kind of town, 15 minutes that way, but there's a road stop there, so there's other things around. Um, so whenever my wife says they're like, "Oh, the town we currently live in, it's her hometown." She's like, "Oh, it's so small." I laugh 'cause I'm like, "You had a movie theater.
Yeah,
You had stores."
I've never lived in a real small town. I've lived in a few towns that are like a little bit like off the map,
Hmm.
but I've never lived in a town without a movie theater.
Yeah, it's there's a reason I got so into like Pokemon and card games and that kind of stuff because like you just had to find stuff to do. You couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, all right, I'm gonna go into town for supplies, and it really was like that, where like you'd plan out your trip, and you know you're not gonna probably get back out there for a little while, if you work or live anywhere nearby.
hmm the lady I've been talking to, she lives in a kind of small town, or at least the outskirts of a small town.
Yeah, I don't know. There's pros and cons to it. Um, I don't want to be too dramatic. Um, there's some neat experiences I got to have that I'd only have in a small town. Like, in my gym class, we had an archery unit
Well, that's cool.
where we got like little trainer bows to use. Um, and there was like good safety and stuff around it too. But you know, kids would go and they'd have it locked up and sealed and that kind of stuff. But we would have to be careful, um, like during hunting season, because kids might accidentally just like, oh darn it, I left the gun in the back after deer hunting yesterday. And I'll have to drive it home quick.
I did live in a town like that. I used to live in Warsaw, Indiana. I was not a fan.
Mm,
I'm not a huge fan of Indiana as a whole, but Warsaw, Indiana, pretty bad. Because it's just rural enough to be, like, overly rural, so a lot of people think they're rednecks. And some, to a degree, kind of are. But,
mm-hmm.
like, they act like they're so tough and so, like, moonshiners and all that. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah,
You live outside of town, but you don't live necessarily on a farm.
right. There's a difference. I mean, like part of my family, they're kind of redneck. It's like, oh well, how would you know? We have a homemade barbecue that was made out of sections of piping that my dad does from like pipeline work, and we light that with a homemade flamethrower.
Nice.
So like, I feel like that at least counts, a little bit.
Yeah. I have an great uncle, whose family lives in the woods in like some side town, and I've never known him not to be a hunter. I think he has like 2 or 3 coolers full of deer, and like if you're family, he'll just give you some. At least if you
Right.
ask nicely. Um, my cousin or my second cousin, kind of, it's my great uncle's son. Um,
Yes.
is a juggalo
Yeah.
who has lived on like a redneck commune a few times.
Hmm.
And like they're all very hardworking, they're all very loyal, they're family.
Right.
But man, it's one of those things where it's like looking at these like people who like buy a Carhartt to be fashionable and people who buy a Carhartt to be like it's the warmest damn thing there is.
Right. There's a difference.
Yeah. So living in rural Indiana, northern rural Indiana, it's like okay, come on. There's not much here. There's a little bit of hunting. There's a little bit of farm life, but like these people take it too far.
Right.
And then there's a few mega churches, and then there's like a huge orthopedic factor. So a lot of these people who were like wannabe country or wannabe gangster, because there was a lot of wannabe gangsters too.
Yeah.
Their families were well off.
Yep.
And it's like, why are you acting this way? You're a rich kid.
Exactly.
And then the bunch of people that weren't rich still acted like wannabe gangsters. So it's like, why are you acting so tough? You live in a trailer park. I'm on I'm on free breakfast. You're on free breakfast. Why are you having beef with me?
Right. I don't know. It's like I'm of the opinion that like 90% of us, just people in general, we were all jagweeds at some point in high school,
Oh, for
right?
sure, for
Like
sure.
90 is maybe even generous. I would say like probably 95. Um, but then there's my one friend I've got. We'll call him Mick, and every time I look back, I'm like, no, actually, he's just kind of always been like that. He's just chill. Like, if he likes that thing, and someone teased him, was like, oh, well, I guess you don't like it. Okay, bye, and he'd go back to doing whatever he's doing. Um, because we were talking about how we were all, at some point, kind of a jerk in high school, and we all like turned and looked and was like, yeah, except for Mick.
Good for Mick.
Yep. And like ever since I realized that, it just made me think like, it's really not worth it, especially once you become an adult. The rat race, comparing to each other, all that kind of stuff. It ain't worth your time. Just be happy.
Yeah,
There's so many more important things you could focus on.
definitely.
You know, the the sentiment of like don't look away because there's rough stuff happening in the world, right? You always need to keep up with the news. You always need to, learn more, and there's always people struggling, that kind of stuff. That's rough, and I don't think it's a healthy mindset. It's kind of like there's kids starving in China. How come you're so ungrateful and not eat your food? You not shoving down extra food for whatever reason doesn't put food in starving kids' mouths. So
Yeah.
in the same token, you know, yes, it's important to be aware, but you can't do it all the time and care for every single little 100 millionth of a thing. Um,
It's
it, it
impossible to keep
it's
up.
it'll break you down. It is. So instead of the world's awful and what do I do about it? Pick a couple things, care a lot about those, and trust that there's other people who care about the other things too.
So, we have to wrap it up here soon because I try to keep these
Yeah.
like an hour and a half. But you you mentioned Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a good way to learn that habit because you can try all you want to focus on everything in the game, but you cannot do it in one playthrough.
Yeah,
You
I
can't
learned that.
you can't do it in 2 or 3 playthroughs.
There's so much. There's just so much.
But is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
Um,
And thank you very much for joining me, by the way. Thank you very much. I had a great time.
yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a
Gladly.
joy. I always love talking with you. Yeah, other than that, just be kind to each other and give grace where it's needed.
Thank you everyone for watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot. Share the video if you're able to. If you're watching on Twitch, thank you very much for joining us.
It's
Uh,
been great having you.
it's been great having you. Like you said, if you're in chat and you're not trying to shill Counter Strike stuff, I'm more than glad to answer questions and include you in the conversation to a degree. Love you, Bones. And thank you very much, everyone. It really means a lot.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop streaming now, but thank you again. And make sure to check me out on Beyond the Machina and everywhere. The link tree is like right there, so you can just copy that link tree, or you can't copy and paste it, but you can like look at it and type it out. And just thank you very much. That's how you can find us. Uh, ASmallDeer on Blue Sky and Beyond the Machina on Blue Sky. And yeah, we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
see ya.